Hello, Paul. So great to see you, and thank you for doing this. Um, wow, we were here 3 years ago. 2017 had the most fabulous summit. People talk about it all the time, and we're delighted to be back. And the topic is keeping a business running during a pandemic. I want to just ask you to start out giving us a little background. And I love numbers. I don't know if you remember that from last year, but I think people want to know. You have 2,000 employees. I remember that was a number, or maybe you have even more this time, or maybe fewer. So can you just give us a little background, how long you've been here, and a little bit, anything you can share with us number-wise?
Sure, I would love to do that, but first I do want to take a moment, Susie, and thank you, Nancy, your team, so much for allowing us to join you in this jump off the cliff, Nancy. It's not only an important piece of business at a time when business is obviously down. I'll touch on some numbers. But more than that, it was an opportunity for us to be part of this amazing organization, Global Wellness, your board, all of your constituents, of setting an example for our country to help build a bridge to getting to the other side. So thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Carmona, for your kind words. Boy, my mental health is even better this morning, hearing Michael Bush and all these wonderful accolades. My team and I'm joined in the room by Denise Bober and Trish Taylor. Guys, wave your hands, please. Two of my top executives on our leadership team. And my name gets mentioned a lot, but it's a team effort, that's for sure. And I want to thank my good friend Michael Bush. Those of you that may have just met Michael for the first time, it's obvious, right? What an amazing human being. The work he's doing for our world and our country is amazing. Michael, thank you so much. Thank you all in the room for being in the room. Thanks to all of you virtually, but especially for those of you to help us being here in person. And again, setting an example. We can do this. We are doing it.
We are.
And I am going to get to the point. This was so important, though, and I just want to say, this started for us back, early March, but it was on March 16th that I woke up. I do a lot of my best thinking at night, and I heard the words of our chairman, Jim Keenan, his cousin, Tom Keenan, our vice chairman, our senior chair, Jim, vice chairman, Tom Keenan, Garrett Kirk, who you met at the last summit, who is now the chairman of our company. And 35 years, that's the first number, I've been with these gentlemen and our board and this great organization most of my adult life. And as we were facing this challenge, Doctor, I heard Jim Keenan saying, for all of these 35 years, and especially in the best of times, rig for bad weather. Be prepared. There's always going to, none of us could have imagined this, but we have always been preparing for a rainy day. And I think a lot of businesses, even very successful businesses, don't ever think about that. So our ability to keep our wits as this was slamming us, hitting us head on, started with knowing we had a foundation, a balance sheet, and an ownership that was behind us. Rig for bad weather, number one, and number two, do the right thing, which sounds so obvious, but not so easy, particularly under the pressure we were under, where we're in an industry among those that have been hit the hardest. So waking up with those thoughts and meeting with my great executive team, before we were asked or required to close, we made a decision to close. We felt like two really important thoughts among others. One, we are one of the biggest, most prominent businesses in this community. A lot of people were struggling. Should I close? Can I close? Will I have to close? we thought it would be helpful to the government authorities if we kind of helped lead the way, at our expense, by the way, because at that point in March, another number, we're bringing in over $1 million a day in revenue. And so we thought, you know, it would be helpful, because we really are part of the greater good. We've got to meet our own goals, but our real objective is to not just make a profit, but to make a difference. Making a profit is a requirement in business. Making a difference is an aspiration. And so the other thing, Susie, was we could sense the pulse of our team. Our team was nervous. A lot of things coming at them, a lot of decisions. We said, let's take this off the plate. Let's get them out of the way. And I think, you know, I don't know the exact number. We probably were 2 weeks ahead of the curve. That probably cost us $15 million, that one decision. And the next decision was, because we didn't know at that point what the federal government was going to do, or the state, to help us get through this, we decided that for the first 8 weeks of closure, which is exactly how long we remained closed, we would pay all of our employees full pay. Period, end of story, whether there was any subsidy or not. And you know, the point of that, among others, is we didn't spend our lives trying to find and care for these wonderful people to the first minute we take a hit to abandon them. For their sake and ours, you know, we try to keep everybody whole. And so, Susie, we have run about 35% occupancy. We reopened on May 22nd. And I will tell you, so we were the really first to close, one of the first to reopen. And now when I look back, Dr. Carmona, I mean, wow, 8 weeks into this unprecedented situation, we were ready to reopen. And it wasn't about making a quick buck, because the other thing I heard from our great owners and leaders was long-term perspective. We're in this for the long haul. Do the right thing and do it in the context of what's best for the long haul. But you know, my team is so amazing. We did 4 or 5 months of work in those first 8 weeks. We were ready to open. We benchmarked all of the best practices out there. Unfortunately, we couldn't rely on sort of the facts, right? Because between the media, the politicians, you know, the poor people are, you know, what can we really rely on? And we coined the term informed common sense. We just had to get all the information we could and make the best judgments. And as I look back now, I'm actually kind of startles me even that we opened in 8 weeks, but we did. And I guess the point is, we've been proving this case. And it wasn't at all about making another buck. You know, we're lucky to break even at 35% occupancy. We should have been operating at 75%. But it's about building this bridge to the future. And to Michael's point, and Dr. Carmona and I spoke about it this morning, it truly was about the mental health of our community and our organization. We did not think we could just run and hide. And so I'll turn it back to you. I'll just wrap that up by saying we're trying to set an example, you know, that works. And again, thank you for helping us do that with this program.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the numbers. I'm kind of rattled with $1 million a day number, but I think it is important, and I'm going to ask you to share one other number before we go into more details about what you've been doing, and that is how many of your team members stay with you, what the turnover rate is, because in hospitality, you might share what the normal average rate is and what you have accomplished here, because I think it's extraordinary.
Yeah, thank you, Susie. And I'll, again, give a pitch to my good friend Michael Bush, who has helped us understand and appreciate this even more, that best-in-class employee satisfaction, and Michael cited our results, Susie, has enabled us to have best-in-class employee engagement and best-in-class employee retention. And so how do you get this incredibly hard job done. Our business there's no business that's easy, I know that. This is a really hard business, 24/7, million details. We could not do what we do if we had industry standard, almost 100% turnover. Our turnover is about 15% a year, or you flip it around, retention about 85%.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, and it is it's among the top 3 drivers of our success. The first, Michael had it on one of the slides, that wonderful circle he had, I think, near the end. It started with hiring. The first step in the process is hiring, and it's alignment. It's people that align with our values, our mission, share our energy and our passion. But then you got to do a lot of other things. Hiring and retention are absolutely at the top of driving the success of this business. So we had 2,200 people on our payroll before we closed in March. And Denise, I think about 700 or so were part-time, on-call, seasonal. And so that group clearly is on the sideline. Our main group, we have over 1,200 people that have been brought back to work. And by the way, another way we've sort of looked at that is, the idea of not just running and hiding. Think about the millions of dollars we've saved our federal and state government by us generating enough business to pay 1,200 people versus putting them on the government payroll. And by the way, I mentioned the million a day in March. That doesn't even come near thinking about how much business we've lost into the future. We're talking tens and tens of millions of dollars. But we're optimistic. We're going to be just fine, and it comes back to, can't say enough, rigging for bad weather. I grew up in a small family business, and we had a lot of success until we didn't. And we didn't have reserves, and that was kind of the end of the story.
Paul, you've been here many, many years, 28 years, and I know Denise, and the longevity of your executive team is quite extraordinary. Can you share with us some of the other crises that you've been through and maybe what you learned in those that has been helpful this time?
Yes, Susie, I can, and I'll chuckle because with this latest crisis, which is kind of the mother of all, and I do have a list I can share with you, with 35 years of experience here and a lifetime of other experiences. We feel like we are running a risk management enterprise, not just in this environment. And it actually dawns on me as I look back to your question, all businesses really have to have that element, and it kind of ties back to rigging for bad weather. And so, 2001, 9/11, the Great Recession, 3 hurricanes that hit us, direct hits, 2004 and 5, which closed the hotel for a period of time, other recessions, wars, but certainly nothing of this magnitude. In the Great Recession, the most recent in 2008 and 9, we learned a lot of things, but I think maybe more than anything, and Michael again used the word trust a lot, and I'm going to give you a more current example, but back then we recovered, and I say none of this to boast. I don't ever want to come across that way, but the facts are the facts, and I share the honest truth to hopefully help others, Susie. We recovered probably 2 years ahead of our industry and our comp set. And one of the main reasons was the trust that our people, meaning our board, our team, our customers, local community, had in us. So a couple of weeks ago, I was on the phone. God knows, Trish, Denise, and I, these last 8 months, I have my coronavirus Word document is now up to 450 pages and hundreds of thousands of words, and every week keeping notes. reaching out to people all over the country, the world. And I spoke with Scott Berman, who is a very good colleague. He's the head of the hospitality consulting practice for PricewaterhouseCoopers, arguably the most significant practice of its kind in the world, in our industry. And we were sharing numbers, and I told him, I said, listen, our occupancy's off by 50, 60%. I said, but Scott, it's funny, our restaurant sales are almost level. They should be off 60%. They're almost even with only 50% of seats in our restaurants. And our retail sales are up 13%. I said, what is going on? And I jumped in. I said, I guess it's just pent-up demand. People want to get out. And he said, no. He said, people trust the breakers. That's why you're getting more than your fair share. And that cannot be sort of underestimated.
I was very amazed, and to hear that you were closed for 2 months and you were prepared to open because you made some adjustments, obviously. But one thing I noticed is that on your website, you had this list, not a list, it's like a booklet of protocols that you have put into place. And I thought it was fantastic you put it on so other people could see it. But can you tell us, how did you put together first-in-class protocols for a pandemic like this?
Yeah, I can, and thank you. And again, Trish, who I mentioned, is our Executive Vice President, Hotel General Manager. Denise is our Senior Vice President of Human Resources. Denise has been with us, thank God, since 1988, and Tricia since 1996. Tricia really was the author of the Health and Safety Protocol, 16-page document you're referring to. And Denise, the author of our team member Return to Work, a 13-page document that we put together within 8 weeks again. And we benchmarked across the board: World Health, CDC, FDA, EEOC, OSHA, American Hotel Lodging, Florida Restaurant Lodging, you name it, we benchmarked it. And then we used our best judgment to pull together what we thought would work. And we no sooner published that, and from that day up to today, Trish and I talk every week about additional protocols. And even when we've talked about 4, 5, 6 months from now, and I hope we're turning the corner in a big way, that a lot of these things will remain in place, like these hand sanitizers. Why not? And by the way, have you ever seen hand sanitizing stations like we have? The Breakers does it at another level. Taking employee temperatures every day coming to work, I mean, I think about that, I feel sort of fool. Like, why didn't we think of that 35 years ago? Is that not a good thing, Dr. Carmona? Don't come to work if you're sick. Our team, they're so amazing. They'll come in with 2 hands tied behind their back to try to help us, carry out this mission. But we don't want them to do that. We want them to be well, stay well, and make others sick. So we benchmarked across the board. We continue to do that, and we really will. As I said, this has taught us a lot that I think applies permanently, not just in a pandemic.
Well, I'm just thinking that maybe we can collaborate on a document like that for hosting gatherings again, because I think we're finding out, and thanks to Dr. Carmona also, that it is important to get together. And we found that, okay, we might not get together with 10,000 people, but we can get together with a smaller group and then add virtual. But there's a safe way to do it, and we've been experimenting. You can see here, we have exercise equipment out, and we're socially distanced, and we have the lunches that are spaced beautifully, and yet they're fabulous lunches, and you serve them all at once and with all the protocols. So maybe we can work together on something with gatherings where wellness is part of all gatherings, and we can get more gatherings going as well.
Absolutely agree. We love that idea. This room is amazing. I see people on the bikes and on the balls, and definitely something we'll offer.
And so let me just end with, a lot of people here have small businesses, some large. Personally, what advice would you give to a leader to lead through this time? Because, and I think Michael Bush said it well, we're all affected mentally, even though we think we might not be, but we probably really are. So what advice would you give? How do you personally go through these crises? And this one, the mother of all crises. What are some things that you think might be helpful for us to know?
Yeah, I will tell you that when I mentioned to start our few important minutes together, thinking back to our incredible owners and some of those words I shared with you, I also started praying a lot, and I do that anyway, but doubled down. I woke up that first day when I knew the war had started, right? And I personally, and this ties beautifully to the Global Wellness Summit and your mission, I made a commitment to double my physical workouts from 6 or 7 hours a week to 12 to 14, and I cut my intake by 30 to 50%. And guess what? I lost 12 pounds, by the way. And the real point is to lead by example. And Michael, I think, hits that nail on the head about leadership. Whether you have 5 employees or 5 million, people are looking, obviously, at you. And its actions speak louder than words. So leading with a both physically, setting physical health, but mental. I don't think my team could ever saw me down. Mad? Yes. Angry? Like, this makes me angry, how many people are being hurt. And especially when it came to this very tough decision about, do we lock down or do we open up, or what do we do? And making a commitment to finding the balance, feeling like with our informed common sense, this was really going to be hard on people mentally. And so, being a good example, I guess, it's that simple to express. It's not that easy to carry out. But if you don't, and Michael touched on it, it will trickle down into your organizations. And so, yeah, we all have tough days, but the best thing to me that happened through all of this, my wife and I had our 4 sons at home with us for 8 weeks. Those first 8 weeks where we were closed, as hard as I worked, I spent a morning workout and evening workout every day, and I had dinner on the porch, a good old-fashioned home-cooked meal by my wife with our 4 grown sons, 21, 23, 25, 27 years old. When will we ever be able to do that in the rest of our lives? So our mental health during that 8 weeks was soaring. It was amazing. Thank you, Susie, so much.
Paul, thank you so much, and I'm delighted to end on that inspirational note. That is certainly something we can try to emulate.